Konnichiwa, Sekai, and Merry Christmas! Or at the very least, it's December upon the time of uploading. Today, we were supposed to do the Fakemon video, but because I kept putting it off, I now have to do the Christmas special. Because I am bad at scheduling. Well, regardless, today I'll be showing off some Fakemon based on inventions. That's right, I'm stealing an idea from Loxton. Though I guess less of inventions specifically and more of things generally produced in both Japan and the Midwest. Also, on the topic of inventions, I didn't know this. Turns out digital types would actually be perfect for a Midwestern region because the supercomputer was invented here. This was completely coincidence, but it worked out perfectly. Anyway, let's not waste time. Oh, and before we get into the Fakemon, there's no story this time. I couldn't think of anything that relates all of these. Let's go! Up first of our holiday theme, we have Flicken, the flower chicken Pokemon, a grass and normal type. Why is it a Christmas Pokemon, you ask? Well, I'll explain that when we see it evolve. This little guy is a distant relative to Torchic, and it's covered in thick flour to keep it warm in the Aster region's cold climate. Hence its grass normal typing, since flour is made from wheat, and is very mundane, wouldn't you say? However, it'll be getting a different type when it evolves into... Crispin, the first gendered evolutions for the Aster region, a fire and grass type obviously. It's a fried chicken Pokemon. Now I said this relates to Christmas. How is that exactly? Funny story. Unlike the West, Japan does not religiously celebrate Christmas. They have their own traditions, including a traditional Japanese Christmas meal. The Christmas fried chicken. Yeah, I'm not making that up. They just straight up eat fried chicken for their Christmas dinner. Why, you ask? KFC. A couple decades back, KFC took advantage of two things: Japan's rising interest in Christmas, and the fact that the country doesn't have turkeys native there. They marketed fried chicken as an alternative to the traditional American Christmas dinner, and the marketing worked. Christmas is easily the busiest day KFC will ever get in Japan, and it's because of one marketing ploy. So I just had to base a Pokemon off of it. Chickens kind of felt natural to be the first gendered variant Pokemon for the Aster region. So, with the male variant, I leaned more into a spicy chicken thing. Since they're both fire types, they also both have that flaming plumage, but the female variant is the more mild, regular chicken that you're much more likely to get without burning your own tongue. All I can say is, between the fried chicken thing and supposedly the ghost of Colonel Sanders cursing a very specific baseball team, Japan has a really weird history with KFC. Alright, was that Christmassy enough for ya? No? Well then let's try these guys on for size. Asterian Bonsley and Asterian Sudowoodo. Now, electric and fairy types. I feel like these guys are pretty obvious. Japan is one of the world's top producers of artificial Christmas trees, and mimicking trees is Sudowoodo's entire thing. As for their typing, I got the idea that their electric lights are really powered off of like Christmas cheer type logic. Like the more joy they spread, the brighter their lights glow. I also really had fun replacing those bulbs with the lights and giving Sudowoodo that scraggly haircut. Now, originally I was going to end the line here, but after I figured out that two stage lines seemed to be dominating the Aster decks, I decided to add one more onto this line. Say hello to Variant. This is the Pokemon I'm most proud of naming after infantry, because it's got a lot to it. First of all, obviously it's got the fairy type right in its name, but it also has Ferris wheel, which were invented in the US to show American engineering off at the World Fair, which is also in its name. And fairs are associated with clowns, and by extension, jesters. And as you can see, its three Ferris wheel-like arms resemble someone juggling. It's also partially based on Ents. You know, the big tree people from Lord of the Rings? Those guys. Another reason for its fairy typing. And lastly, altogether, its name sounds like merriment, or joy. Obviously, that's where Merry Christmas comes from, and every part of it, save for the end, relates to this. It's a jester, it's a Ferris wheel, it's a Christmas tree. All things that bring joy, make merry. Put simply, this guy is just fun to be around. Alright, with the Christmas mon out of the way, let's get into some more invention mon. The next two lines, 4 Pokemon total, were made in conjunction with a friend of mine. So let's show those off. Now, for those who don't know, the Midwest was actually a pretty big powerhouse in the Industrial Revolution, so the industrial Pokemon would probably show up here, like Galarian Weezing, Tinkaton, and Revavroom. Especially Revavroom because of Detroit Motor City. Speaking of Revavroom and cars, say hello to Asterian Roly-Coly, a pure steel type and much more refined than its Galarian counterpart. Asterian Roly-Coly has been upgraded from a steam engine to a full-blown steam automobile. Going into a Midwest region, I knew I was going to have to do a car Pokemon, but with Revavroom already existing, a friend of mine suggested using the Model T as a base, as they were one of the earlier models of cars. Why is it a regional Roly-Coly, you ask? Simple. By the time I made this, Galar and Kalos were the only Pokemon regions I hadn't made any variants for. Additionally, Asterian Roly-Coly is basically Aster's version of Cascadian Bellsprout. By that I mean, it was a 3-stage evolution, but here in Aster, it's a 2-stage. Say hello to Trolley-Coly. Don't you just love how that name is somehow more British than the one in the British region? Poetic irony, I guess. Anyway, this guy gains the bug type, as it's a bit more of an insectoid. Thank you, MatPat, for that idea. And honestly, I totally don't mind if people don't like this one. It was hard to design in a way I was somewhat happy with. Car Pokemon are a difficult undertaking. It still has its sort of kaiju inspiration that Colossal has, only it's much more of the Mothra type than the Godzilla type. Instead of a lizard, it's a bug. Honestly, I can't tell if this is too much of a departure from its first form. What would you guys think? Should I do a regional car poll to fill out the line, or should I just keep with the idea I was going with? Moving on to a Pokemon I am completely proud of, here is Charvel. It's a shovel shark. A mono ground type, I focused on making this guy as head empty as possible. He is truly just the Blaha of the land. Obviously, he's a literal sand shark with a shovel for a fin that sticks out as he swims. Nothing too deep for this guy, I just focused on making a cute little Sharkmon. But he gets a lot less cute when he evolves into Plowable. A literal bull shark with a temper to match both. This angry boy is based on the steel plow, invented in Illinois to help make farming easier. I got the idea to flip the plow upside down using the main metal bit as the dorsal fin of the shark, while the handles jet up front to become the horns of a bull. These big boys are fast enough to plow a field in 10 seconds flat, so farmers will try to use them to increase the speeds of their yields. Unfortunately, they also have quite the temper, so they're pretty hard to control. And finally, we move from the ground to the sky to show off a Pokemon idea that's kind of original. Have you ever wondered what it'd be like if legendary Pokemon were just normal, everyday Pokemon? Well, I have, and so I've created mundane legendaries. Basically, a smaller, weaker version of a legendary Pokemon. Aster has 2, including Air Ray. A flying and dragon type, I think it's pretty obvious who this guy's related to. What can I say? I wanted a baby Rayquaza. This little guy is based on planes, as the Wright brothers took their first successful flight in North Carolina. I got the idea of it not having fully developed wings, so it wiggles around using its head feathers as a makeshift propeller, kinda like those snakes who can glide for a short amount of time. And if you didn't know about those, you're welcome for the nightmare fuel. Eventually, Air Ray evolves into Rayquaddle, which is much more obviously related to its legendary cousin. I used the circle patterns that Rayquaza has natively to sort of emulate windows on a passenger plane. Admittedly, I tried to do so with the silhouette too, but it didn't work, so I just copied Rayquaza's. In order to help it stand as its own thing, I leaned harder into the Quetzalcoatl inspiration that Rayquaza already had, and for the color scheme, I based it on a Japanese fighter plane. These guys may not be as powerful as their legendary cousin, but they can still pack a punch when they need to. And there you have it, some new invention-based Pokemon. What'd you think of them? Any comments on the lines? Any you'd add to your teams? Regardless, make sure to like and subscribe so I can get some more videos out. I can definitely say that one of my New Year's resolutions is gonna be to upload more of these at a more consistent pace. Until then, ink out and Merry Christmas, everybody!